These are none of these are anything I,
No, it's not.
except for a calculation.
You know?
Okay.
I don't,
That's just.
no, I believe you.
I have,
So they haven't put me in. Hang on, let me use this because I'm so good you really read my mind.
yes, no, I, you know, a cleric stuff, that's you.
Let's go. All right, so 7:45. Calling meeting order. Is there any public comment? I know. Let's just let them go. Huh? Where do you have public comment? There's the public comment.
I just want to say thank you to the Board of Finance for hearing the PNC, all needs and concerns, and for giving us the more money that we asked for, some of the money that we asked for back. So thank you for hearing us, and thanks to all you guys doing really.
Any other public comment? And we have, Tom is not with us, so we need a seat and alternate for nomination. I will nominate Carl. Any discussions? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Yes, Tom. With us. So. Gotta come back. I pulled all the treasurer's numbers together, and that's what I've sent out, and Amy did catch one little thing on my page 2 of it
Very
that I missed on the mill rate calculation, but I just wanted to kind of walk through what I did. And again, all I did was take the treasurer's numbers and put them in a format because I needed to understand it. I was losing track of where things were going. So on the first page, in the pink column was actually what I had received from Michelle. Okay, got it. And then I just did an adjustment based off of our starting balance for the general fund was 1.2 million, 0.28416. And then over in the square box to the right is the projection for 24-25. The revenue amount is what she provided to us at the town meeting. So I have not, I haven't changed anything. That was what the revenue was projected. The expense and the Board of Ed, the Board of Selectmen is what was in. We just voted on. Based off of those two numbers, the appropriation that is needed, and this does not include the 149,049, which we had appropriated for last year from the general fund. Right now, we need 8,374 to make.
From
the 149. Yeah, we went from 149 to 83374. So that
balance this year's, okay.
well,
So let me ask you, can I ask you a question this morning? You want to finish up?
no, you can go right ahead. We can.
We don't have, maybe they exist and we'll get them soon. But I don't think we have the revenue reports and the expenses up to date to reflect this. And I'm not saying it's wrong, it's just I'm commenting on the information we have. To reflect this not shortfall, but the need for only 8,000 of the 150,000 that we appropriated. So, and I'm not trying to ask you a trick question. How much confidence do you have in that number? I mean, I want to know if we're going to make decisions based on information that is hard or soft. And last year we ended up having very soft information. So it was off by $300,000. So if we don't have a high level of confidence in it, we still have to proceed. But I think we should be clear with each other. Yes or no, we think this is not down to the penny, but quite close to what we're going to need.
With a month to go. So
I mean, really, we're 4 weeks less away from the end of the month.
it feels pretty, I have a higher level of confidence because if we take the document that was the projected revenue, And I have it updated through 5/28, which is.
We have 529 right here even.
So we have that updated. We have the revenue. The additional to it is the 20,000 that we got from a municipal aid grant and a LoSiP money, which was not in the 50, in the 528 fund. So. And then she also has a town meeting right at the bottom. 26 minus 26. Going on there. Oh,
This is the additional,
Yeah.
additional revenue, yes.
Yeah.
It's on
The additional revenue, I do know is it above, it is in the other town revenue,
Yeah, she said, I asked her that same question. It's in there.
yes, it's in there.
It's just, it was just accounted for in that one column, just so there was a note. In the
Correct.
revenue. Cause I wondered also.
And. It will leave, we're at. 5,951,368, and then we add 47,000. Which is money that just came in this past week. So that's another additional 40.
So
47.
can-
So we're up at 5.973.
So can we test it this way? And again, I'm not disagreeing with the numbers. But we appropriated $150,000 because we thought we were gonna need it. And it turns out we're needing only a little more than $8,000. So we had to, one way or another, come into about $142,000 that we didn't budget for. So the elements of that have to be unbudgeted revenue, spending below appropriations, reduced by any subsequent special appropriations that we made that we didn't know about when we set the budget. That should all add up to this 142. Are we comfortable that it does?
Are we comfortable that,
That we can identify the components of why we seem not to need at this point $142,000 that when we budgeted, we thought we would need.
yep,
So,
we can, I feel confident that we
well,
can.
what are the elements of the 142,000? How much of that is unbudgeted revenue?
The current year's taxes, she had estimated at 10,000. Prior year's taxes, 28, interest and fees, 25. Conveyance is 12,000. Including the aquarium money, it was 39,000, additional town revenue. So she had laid out the other unbudgeted.
So is the figure, 100?
It's on that sheet.
The left
152,
column.
yeah.
So,
Not added up.
so it adds up to $152,000.
Right.
Which already exceeds the 42,000, the 142,000 that we thought we were gonna need and now don't need. We've more than made up for that just with unbudgeted revenue.
Well, I think that's because we, as a body, have traditionally been very conservative in our revenue projections. And even in this number that we have from Michelle, it's a very conservative number. For instance, giving the state, local revenues are at 612,000. Whereas we've never, we've rarely received such a low amount, not never, but rarely.
Well, if you receive $152,000 of revenue. That you did not budget for, and you only thought at the outset that you needed 150,000. Then you wouldn't need any of the 150,000 of appropriation. We're being told we're gonna need 8,000. So they're just pieces of arithmetic that seem to be missing to me. And it could be that, Ginger, the number you've got at the bottom of the white column is very close to accurate. $1,040,000 in the general fund. It's just hard for me to piece together the components of that to make it all reconcile. So do we know at this point? I guess we do. What is the extent to which the various agencies in town are not going to expend their appropriation? Can we piece that together?
Well, yeah,
You don't need,
that would be off of her, no, I know what you're saying. That's a good question.
Well, you have a month left
Mhm.
and I don't know, I think our
Not even
last
3
P
weeks,
and
right?
L was our last P and L, though. We don't have a P and
3
L
weeks.
for May yet.
No, we haven't.
So we have 2 months of expenses we don't know about. I did happen to ask Tim Downs, do you think you're gonna use all this year? He seemed to think so, but he really does. The selectmen may have a better idea of what's to come in the next 2 months, because you write the checks and, sign the checks.
We'll be writing some checks out of, if I may. We'll be writing some checks out of our, legal line. And I believe that, the technology line for the first selectman, there's two things that we're going to need there, the upgrade for my computer, because I'm in that cycle right now. And we have to look at a CCTV camera to monitor our ballot files.
Is that coming out of a reserve or is that coming out of the expense?
Would probably come out of our expense before the end of the year.
Well, listen, I don't mean to belabor this, but it just seems to me that we do not have the completeness and accuracy of information that we should have before we make the critical decision of how many mills we have to increase the tax rate here. This may be our best, and I'm not finding any fault with you whatsoever, Ginger. It's not your job to get us this information. So we're gonna make a decision tonight, and it may be based on accurate information. It may be based on information that is inaccurate only by a little bit. I really just don't know, and I'm a bit uncomfortable with it.
This is the second year that we're making decisions based on inaccurate information, and it's
Not so much inaccurate, but incomplete, would you say, Carol?
oh, it's the same thing.
But
No, it's
last-
no,
last-
it's not the same thing.
Last year was inaccurate.
Last year was,
Inaccurate.
it was incomplete and therefore inaccurate.
That's what
What I'm saying is, we don't have a complete array of the data that we should have in order to concur with the treasurer about what's the balance in the general fund gonna be at the end of the year. I mean, I think when we're making decisions this close to the end of the year, we ought to have that number straight from the treasurer. And what I hear you saying, Ginger, is you took the treasurer's information and to the best of your ability derived this figure 1040, and we're gonna have to act on that. It may be off a little bit, maybe more than a little bit, I really don't know. But it's not a situation that should endure. We should have better information as of the time we have to make this decision tonight. And Amy, it's not an answer to say that she's conservative and
Right, I agree.
that's just not, that's.
So for instance, if we had had the P and L for May, it would have been more helpful.
Well, what I really would like to have is the treasurer giving us a number that says the projected general fund on June 30 is gonna be X.
Don't we?
Well, we have Ginger's
Yes.
derivation of that.
It's just pulling the data in. The only difference that I did was I did pull into. Instead of working off of trying to match a budget, the only difference was I took the actual numbers that I had. I didn't pick up any others. I just pulled in the revenue that was projected. I just pulled in the expenses that were projected, and that was it. And they were both from the municipal and the Board of Ed spending plans.
am I reading this correct to see that the difference between what was estimated and the adjustments? If I'm looking at the bottom of these two columns, we're talking about a $40,000 difference and we're discussing a $6 million budget.
$6,000?
Like 46,000.
Won't impact too much.
It's not gonna impact.
Yes, I don't,
So,
but again, the 1040
yeah,
is a derivation.
correct.
So
But
it,
it's
that
not a
could be,
derivation made in outer space. I mean, it's a
And it's
derivation
actually, the
made based
104
on very
needs to
good,
be reduced by the 26th. We just passed the,
correct.
the
right.
ambulance
Right.
allocation. So it actually becomes to to 1014. 1014, 326, 69.
The 1040 becomes 10,
101,
1014,
okay.
326.69, correct. 1014,
69?
326.69.
So $1,014,000.
So my question is, given the difference,
Which is why. And the other thing that
how much of a difference does that make when you're calculating the mill rate on a $6 million budget? Are we talking about material amount,
3/10 of a mil,
3/10?
yeah, roughly. 86,000 to 14,000, so the difference is 72. That's about 3/10 of a mil.
So I think the other thing I put on the
Thank
side, just to keep in mind is, the steep grant. Which we did receive. We
And
can
you have that
leave,
125.
I left the 125 on my calculator. All I did was put information in there. I didn't do anything, but I know that, some items were not. But it's here. But I just want to be transparent. I'm just
Right.
trying to help us all make a decision without starting with nothing
Right.
to look at. And then we do have the additional revenue for next year's budget. That we can consider on the calculator.
So that's,
Of
that's
70,000.
the 70,000,
Mhm.
right?
Yes, that was the additional state.
So that 125 number shouldn't be there? Is that what you're saying? Or it should
It
only
should
be
there.
90?
The only thing we could do is potentially make an adjustment to it, but at this point, it's sitting there.
Can I just add to that, excuse me? I think, Dave, correct me if I'm wrong. The motion that evening was to put $125 aside to meet those projects if awarded.
Right.
3 out of 5 of those were, or 3 out of 4 were awarded. We did not break it out by per project. We allocated, the town meeting approved $125,000
For 3 out of 5 projects.
no, for all the projects that had.
That was for all the
I don't know
projects,
if you can,
So we can't really, we need.
I don't know. I'm just saying, I don't
But
know.
it's a safe way to
Safe way of
believe
believing
it at this point in time.
Yeah.
Yes.
So you had given us some information that said, we need to, keep roughly $800,000, 794, 597, which is 12.5% of our operating budget, for the town. So I know we need to keep in mind that we want to keep that amount in there. When you apply the calculator, you can do that. And then, as you said, we have to talk about how much from the general fund we might put in here to, push down the mill rate, or keep it down or raise it less, etc., right? And that's that faded 22 down that. No, that's not it.
No,
So that's that's 16C is the one that
Yeah.
would be affected. So,
Well, if we're of a mind that we're gonna maintain a 12.5% level, so if that's 795, if you run. So if we do have 1014 in the general fund, then we could take $219,000 out of the general fund to meet the shortfall. 219. And we don't have to do that, but we could do that. So if we did do that, and if the deficit of 397 adjusted for the $70,000 that we're gonna get from the state that we didn't know we were gonna get,
What was the number you said that?
it's this.
No, the 300 and what?
97.
397.
Thank you.
Second page. at the
Yeah, no, I'm
bottom.
just doing, okay. Oh, second page. Okay,
So
Thank you.
397 and change.
Okay.
Reduced by 70,000 is 327.
327, right?
And if we could take 220 out of the general fund, that means we have to make up the difference, which is 150,000 out of a mill rate increase. Everybody agree with that arithmetic?
Well, I came up with
agree with
107.
your Arithmetic.
No, it's
Right.
107.
It's 107.
It's 107.
Yeah.
327 minus 220.
220 is 307. Or it's 107. 107.
So it's the 107, and I understand your train
So
of thought.
it's 107?
Yeah, you took the
Correct.
70 off the 397, and then we took 220 off the 327, which brought us to 107.
107030.
Oh, I'm sorry, right, 327 less
220.
220, right.
Right.
So it's 107, and that would be,
It's
somewhere
0.4.
between 0.4 and 0.5 mils,
So, you know,
if we did that. So that's just the parameters of the arithmetic.
and my gut says that you have also prior years and interest and liens. And you also have, as I stated before, a very conservative state and local revenue amount. So, you know, I wouldn't try to make up the 107, my personal point of view.
Clarification on something, the 125, back me up to the 125,000. We still have that in there, but yet you don't think, you think we have to leave that 125 in there?
I think you do.
Even though
That's
we
the
haven't
greatest
gotten
number.
I thought it was a percentage of the grant.
No, I
There was one specific motion that was made to allocate $125,000 from the general fund for, I don't know, 4 projects, Dave, right?
Totaling $1 million, so.
No, that's the general fund allocation. I don't think you can touch it until those projects are done. Right, that's my guess.
Okay, I don't know, that's what I'm saying, because then you have that little bit of leeway there, because it was 90,000 versus 120,000.
Yeah, but I think.
125,000.
I think we have to keep the 125.
Yeah, there's at least a possibility
Right.
that Denise's surmise is correct.
Right.
Plus it could be project overruns.
Yeah,
The 125,000 was allocated for projects that don't carry a capital reserve. Well, something like the salt shed has enough to cover the 20%. Something like the thing at the pool, the cabana at the pool doesn't. There's no capital reserve for that. So the 20%. We have to look at what projects were awarded. And with 20% for the ones that don't have. Capital reserve.
So do you have to put 20% of towards each project, or can you, if like there's an overrun on project 1, can you, does that $125,000?
That was only for the projects and we applied for 8 or 10 of the projects.
Right,
That 125 was only for the ones that did not have a reserve account. But the motion.
Got
was
it.
One motion.
got it, okay.
Some,
so
Yep.
just
For
a
a lump sum.
possibility
lump
that
sum.
that's right.
Okay.
It's,
Yeah,
that's the
so we'll
concern.
leave the
Okay.
125.
Well, I just have a suggestion for how we approach this. We've got 2 sources to make up the shortfall, which is whatever it was, 327, something like that. We've got 2 sources. We can use general fund, and we can use a mill rate increase. So I think we can save a lot of time by seeing what the consensus is on whether we're willing to take the general fund down to the 12.5% red line. I'd be good with that.
I'd actually want to tentatively take it down below that, because I think we're gonna end up like we did last year. We have more in the general fund than we think, because of the conservative numbers here. The state's gonna come in higher, we're gonna end up having more, so.
This is what we agreed to. Yeah.
Yes, we voted, we
Yeah,
we voted on it, and I think that,
Well, if you do that, then you will be increasing the mill rate. Yep.
by how much?
Well, let's
wait,
just,
if
let's
you
just,
do what?
If you go down 794, 597,
Correct.
if you use the general fund, Roxanne, to the maximum amount without violating the 12.5% red line. So we could take it from what we
Right.
think is its current amount, which is $1,014,000, down to 795. So that's approximately 220 out of the general fund. So it would
Oh.
help, I think, to have a consensus on whether. Some people may be of the view that we could take it down below that, but that would require us to have a whole other motion and discussion, because we do have a policy. We said 12
What are we
and a half.
talking about in the mill rate increase numbers wise?
I mean, if we took,
If we took, if we worked with this number of 107, what would it be for mill rate? Point what?
If we take 219, based on our calculator, it'd be 0.4.
With
A 0.4 increase?
increase,
Because we have to add the 70,000 of the additional revenue that the state has just allocated us. Correct.
so. 397 less the $70,000 of state money means our shortfall is
327 minus, yeah,
27, and if we took.
Yeah.
220 out of the general fund, we'd have 107,000 to make up with a mill rate increase. So, I mean, it seems to me you could discuss these simultaneously or in order, but I have a feeling that in order to keep the mill rate increase as low as possible, that there's consensus around the table to take the general fund down to 12.5%.
Can I ask a math question? Because I'm really not a math expert. I've told you that many times, okay? What's the percentage? Is that,
It's 12.5%.
no, no,
Our annual.
how much increase in percentage would people's individual taxes go up? Do you know what I mean?
Well.
Dollar wise, I don't know if I'm asking
Well,
the question correctly.
if you had a half a mil increase,
Mhm.
it's 0.4,
Right.
0.45. If it was a half a mil increase, and what's our current mill rate is 22?
Yeah.
So
would go
that's
up.
0.5 divided by 22.5 or
For
by
2%.
22.
So
So,
it's 2%.
um,
I can't, I'm not good at math.
You just did it.
yes,
So
somewhere between 2 and 3%.
can I ask another question then? Because you're calculating this based on projected revenue also for the coming year, correct?
Yes,
But the projected revenue
It
is
actually is,
always more.
Yes.
More. Why would you go ahead and take
Because of the policy we have adopted.
the policy, but is the 12.5% by statute?
no,
We
No,
don't set it as.
no.
policy
we
as a
said it.
board.
It's
But it was a recommendation.
Yeah, it's a.
But it's a
It's a
state,
blend of the
state
guidance.
auditor.
The auditors
It's a blend of the
recommended it, yeah.
guidance we've had.
Okay,
You know, I think this year we budgeted for 99+% collection. We're never gonna collect more of the current revenue than 100%.
correct.
So it always seems to me a bit rash to think that everybody's gonna pay every last penny that they owe, but you know, we get
But we've
close
had
to
this-
100%.
yeah.
So we get some money that we didn't expect. We collect some past taxes. But that's a very contingent proposition. You don't know whether that's gonna happen year to year. We had an unusual situation last year, the year before. We had some foreclosure sales that we do once in a blue moon. So, so anyhow,
Okay.
is there a sense around the table that we can use the general fund down to the 12.5% level? I feel comfortable doing.
I would be. I wouldn't.
I am.
And I said I would like to change the policy, but. At
Well,
least
what would,
12%.
what would the difference be, just for our,
I would
for
like not,
Amy?
I would like not to raise the mill rate at all.
oh, I would agree with you on that, but that would require how much from the general fund, 12% or 11.5%? You know, this is what I'm,
327.03.
You'd have to take $107,000 more out of the general fund, so you
which would
take it
drop
from.
it down to, I
Change the policy.
no,
no, can't change the policy,
You
okay.
can't do it. It's
No,
not
you
can't
on
do
the
it.
agenda.
Yeah, we're not
No,
gonna do that.
No, no,
tonight.
okay, it was just a question I had, because it's,
Okay.
But also that mill rate, 2% mill rate increase?
no, 0.4.
No, 2%.
It's
Yes,
two-
No, no, but so that's below the cost of inflation.
yes, it
And
is.
so I think as far as the
It's
board
Not a
goes,
bad thing.
we're doing due diligence.
Yeah, I think this is a balanced approach where we got some money at the last minute from the state. So our shortfall for next year is $70,000 less. That was good news. And we have enough in the general fund for this, that, and the other reason. As we understated it last year, but we didn't understate it.
Right, we don't really, yeah.
We thought it was $300,000 less than this, so we have a little more cash around and we can afford to meet our expenditures with a modest mill rate increase. I don't know Amy, you expressed some sentiment for not making up the full, just for sake of discussion, $107,000 through a mill rate increase. It seems to me that's tantamount to hoping we'll collect more past revenue, so that we collect enough past revenue to make up for the difference. I mean, how do you have a budget that doesn't meet your expenses unless you are thinking you're gonna get some newfound
I
money?
think, no, it's not newfound money. I think the projections are low. And I understand your perspective completely, and I respect it. I just, my MO is a little different when making these things. What I want to say, though, is that I do think that this is the best that we can do at this point in time. You know, I'll go into public comment afterwards about, you know, I don't want to go off the agenda. And I, for the sake of making the evening go a little shorter, maybe. I would like to make a motion to set the mill rate for 25-26 to be 22.4%. I mean, 22.4 mils, which is what we've talked about, which is Earl.
Pardon me? Yeah, it's
22.44
Is the difference.
yes.
is the difference,
So-
or the mill rate.
You'd need to take the mill rate up to 22.44 in order to cover the $107,000.
Okay, mine,
Oh,
I
going
didn't
out,
do it.
okay.
I didn't
Yeah.
format. It's not formatted for two.
So-
Thank you, Denise. That's cool too with me. I still think it's the best we can do. I think
So what your motion is,
is to raise the mill rate by 0.44 to 22.44. It's a
Fiscal year
motion
25-26.
Yes.
for
yes.
25-26,
word
which is what I said in the beginning of my motion.
is there a second?
I'll second.
So now you have it on the table at least.
Yeah. So now there's
Okay.
discussion.
Yeah.
I heard you speaking about, budgeting at 100% versus not actually being able to collect 100%, correct? But are you budgeting at 100%?
Yeah.
I am.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah,
Because we don't take into account the revenue of back taxes or some other things. So in light of.
Not this,
good question.
It's 100.
sure, because
Yeah.
I collect more than 100% every year.
Yeah, you do.
I got one thing I want to point out. I pointed out in our last meeting. The Board of Ed went up $200,000. So that's
A mill,
that's a mill there.
just about.
And that's something that's,
Right. We have no control.
we
over it.
don't have any control
So
over.
to be able to,
So to be able to go up less than 50%,
Pretty good,
I mean, half a mil.
pretty good.
Yeah, I thought it was pretty good.
the discussion?
Did someone second?
So I did.
Carol,
Yes,
Carol.
Carol.
Thank you, Carol. I missed it.
So can you read the motion and we can,
Amy Nguyen made a motion to set the mill rate for fiscal year 2025-2026 at 22.44.
Are we ready to vote? All those in favor?
All right.
Opposed? Motion passes. And then the allocation.
This is where I get a little confused, because I know we've talked about the 219,000 that John, guided us to arriving at, and then there was the 70,000. So when we talk about allocation for the general fund, I added those two together in order, to get to 2244. And it was 289,000. So is that basically what you're asking?
219 would take us to the 22.4.
And, okay, and then the 70, it comes from another source.
That's revenue that's going in, that's part of the calculation. Yes.
Revenue that's going in,
Into next year's
it's going into
Yeah.
next year, where?
revenue projection.
And what line?
It
general.
would be in your, and what line is, where is the revenue coming in? It's early. It's in the education cost sharing.
Okay, got it. Thank you. Okay, so.
And that
yeah,
was, that was state
Great.
money that was shared. Yeah.
right. So I'm gonna make another motion. To allocate from the general fund to meet the spending allocations for fiscal year 25-26, an amount equal to $219,000.
Second.
Okay. Ginger, I didn't focus on this number before I got here tonight. So we're finishing out this year with, well, let me see. We're thinking we need almost nothing of the general fund appropriation for this year. We appropriated 150, we need only $8,000. So can you take us through how you arrived at what you think is gonna need to be our general fund appropriation for next year? I'm not sure I understand that, how you get
All I
there.
did was take the starting balance of the general fund from last year. The 1.2,
Yeah.
less the appropriation, that's the 8,000. Less the town meeting appropriation for bridges of 55 that is not sitting in a budget, but it's we appropriated that. And less the 26 that we just voted on at the town meeting. So that's the 26,000 there. Brings us to 81,000 coming out of 1.2, so it's 1,119,000, and then there's 20,000 of state revenue that is not in any projection for this year. That has been received. And then I took out the 125, so I just used all Michelle's numbers and plugged them into here and came up with the 1.14, 1,014,326.69. Okay. Now, again, that's just a projection that's based off of the numbers that Michelle has provided to us, and as well as I did ask her, she did send me any revenue that came in that she wasn't sure of, and Dave and I received emails of what she was getting this week, because a lot of the state money comes in at the last hurrah.
So is that a conservative general fund balance? Is it,
Estimate.
It's an estimate.
it's an estimate,
But is it
because
conservative?
is it
I
conservative?
don't know.
Cause if
I'm
it
not
were
the-
even 100,000 higher, we could take
That would be
more
a
than
miracle.
220 and not. Well,
But it could go the other way too.
exactly. I mean, the numbers have shifted that much.
Well, for instance, last year, we approved a budget that was based on $632,000 from the state. The projection is now 682 plus thousand, and that doesn't take into account, I don't believe, what you've just
That
shared
was
with us.
20,000, yeah.
Right, so
State
I'm
and
just-
local revenues, is what
so-
you're saying.
yeah, and I don't, I'm sorry, I don't have years and years of data in front of me, but I only have last year's. But my recollection is that, I mean, last year in particular, I think John's right, we ended up with a lot more than we expected. And it was on the backs of the taxpayers, and I don't want to do that again. But I think that I think that what we've approved for the mill rate is the best that we can do.
Look at what we have in front of us right now.
Yes, and with the policy that we've approved. And I think for the 219,000, that is the basis of the 22.44 that we've just approved.
Right.
So the motion's on the table and
Was there a second?
Yeah,
so-
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, are you thinking of
I'm-
suggesting something else?
No, I just want to tease this out a little bit more. What the general fund appropriation should represent, forget about how much the number is, what it should represent is the excess of our expenditures over our revenue in the coming year, right?
Sure.
Okay.
It's cumulative. though.
No, it's just next
Okay.
year,
Next
just
year,
next year.
just next year.
So I'm gonna just ask the question, Ginger. is that the number that you came up with, 219,000, something like that?
Mhm.
Is that based on what you know right now?
Based on everything that that I presented here and made the slight adjustments that we've talked about.
Right, so if we took the treasurer's projected revenue for the coming year and we subtracted our expenses, we'd be $220,000 roughly in the hole. And so we have to make that up through a general fund appropriation.
That's correct. Yeah,
Yes.
Okay, so if it turns out that's all right, that's all correct. Then at the end of next fiscal year, our general fund is gonna be, am I right in thinking 795 less that 220?
No, we
No.
won't go below the 795.
Well, we
Because there's another 70, I was told, that is in the projected revenue.
that's included in the 790.
okay,
Yes,
okay.
I mean, we won't go below our 12.5%.
That's really what I'm asking.
Okay,
I mean, the only reason you would go below is if something came up and we needed
That's
to,
traffic.
Yeah, I'm just looking
That's what it
at the budget now, at the budget for next year. And so, by taking the general fund down to $795,000, right, we have covered the entire shortfall.
Until next
I'm
year.
just a little confused by the arithmetic. I'm not disagreeing with anybody.
we
I'm just,
haven't covered the entire shortfall, actually.
That's why there's a.
That's why we have an increase. No,
well, I mean, with the increase.
okay.
Shortfall's the 107, right?
After,
After everything else.
after pulling from the.
can I move to call a question?
For a second to call.
I second it. Okay, that's all. See ya.
Any seconds? All in favor of the call to question?
Aye.
Aye.
Right.
Opposed? Favor of the motion and,
That I
That-
made and Carol seconded.
and I'm gonna have Denise read back this so we're all on the same page. Thank you. All right.
Amy Nguyen made a motion to allocate $219,000 from the general fund to meet the spending plan for 2025-2026 expenditures to meet revenue. Carol seconded.
All right, in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Public comment.
I do, of course. I'm really concerned. Denise, the money, the numbers from the state, Amy, are actually confirmed by the state now. When we do this a month before, that's why we got the other 70,000. So, I don't think
They hadn't changed since we got this.
there's an extra 70,000 for town
Oh,
road
I'm
fund.
looking at the 529 here. Says 529. You have something dated later than that?
It's more like 5 9, or I don't know what it was.
Okay, 'cause it's 611,882.
Plus 70,000.
Yeah.
It's not, I don't.
It's in the calculation you came up with, but my
Right.
point is, we've taken into account all the state revenue,
Yes.
pretty good estimate on the local revenue. You're using 100% of property taxes. You're bringing the general fund down to 12.5. What do you do if you need a bridge repair? What do you do if Cobble Road needs something? There is no money left to make an allocation from the general fund. Nothing. And I know, I understand why you've done it. Nobody wants to have a tax rate increase. But I'm very concerned in the financial position this town is in. And you can say, we always get more money, we always get this. But we've compensated for that this year. The state money is already in. There has to be a plan, you guys. We have 2 years left of shortfalls in the general fund. We can't keep going this way.
Something's gotta
It's not
change.
fair to the taxpayers. It's not. So that's my comment.
Other comments?
My public,
Yeah, but I have a public comment right now. I'll say my address, 1863, because they may recognize.
I do.
Our pleasure.
Yes, yes.
Thank you much.
No, you're welcome. I am not a resident of Falls Village, but I'm on the grant list, so I was very happy to participate in town meeting and be at this meeting. And I'm also happy to be a member of the Board of Finance in North Canaan. So, considering the former resident of 1863, I intend to be very involved in Falls Village politics. But, my role that I see is a bridge between both towns. So I'd like to share, for context purposes, with the Falls Village Board of Finance, that we have a general fund in North Canaan close to $6 million. We've been able to achieve that over the last about 5 to 6 years. By both grants that the school received through COVID, but also maintaining our municipal budget. And every year we've had a revenue surplus of about $500,000. So it's something to consider for Falls Village about ways that you could budget and also, unfortunately, potentially increase taxes to increase your general fund. In towns that I work for, and I have an invasive plant management company, and in towns I work for across the state, especially in Fairfield County, they're able to have very large dollar budget surpluses, and they use those large dollar budget surpluses towards municipal investment funds. That's something that I brought up in North Canaan for our large general fund surplus, and it's something that could be considered for Falls Village as well, if you budget that way. If in North Canaan, both with a municipal budget surplus being folded into municipal investment opportunities, as well as private endowments that we have with the Exchange Club and now the newly created North Canaan Education Foundation, we intend to, over time, take certain line items out of the municipal budget and have those private endowments pay for them, as well as use the municipal endowment if we can even create one. Depends on the political swings of the town, and then use that, the interest from those municipal accounts to pay the line item. So it's something to consider for Falls Village. I think there's a couple things that need to be worked out in time, but I look forward to being a participant in that process, sitting this side of the table. So
What's the mill rate in North Canaan?
the mill rate right now is 24.75.
and what percentage of the land is non-taxable?
That's a good question. I would say it's under 10%.
We have over 50%.
We're at 50%, so that's.
Population.
Yeah.
Population is 3,200.
They're a little over
They're a
1,000.
third.
Right.
Yeah, so it's great to learn from some of those models, but they are very different.
Yeah, I understand that Falls Village has
Not to say what you're
challenges.
saying isn't
Yeah.
valuable.
Yeah.
I understand that Falls Village has challenges as far as generation. But you all have an opportunity in 2027 with the reval, and considering the way that real estate has been, hopefully things don't drop off in the next couple of years. But you have a lot of investment in your property.
And what's the budget for Martina?
Municipal budget? Oh, it's 5.5 mils of the change.
No,
But I'm trying to think of the specific number, but I can't think of it off the top of my mind. It's somewhere in the $2 million range. I can get that information to you if you like that.
really,
Town budget?
ours is 2.4.
Ours, I believe, is 2.6. I'll give you the exact
Oh,
figure.
that's okay, I can look it up.
Okay.
I think it's 13.
Chris, it's all there. Christian, does the town of North Canaan supplement their any capital reserve? Your specific projects like Falls Village has for roads and bridges, another account for the salt shed, another account for different things that the town needs, the ambulances and the snowplow trucks and the like. So we don't have to garner a huge amount in our reserve, in our general fund to take care of that type of thing. It's all counted for in the general.
The short answer to that is yes. But the situation, especially with fire and ambulance, that they have a shortfall when they want to buy a new piece of equipment. So we're talking about extracting a significant chunk of change out of our general fund to support a new fire truck.
So North Can's carrying quite a bit of bond on different things, fire trucks and.
Not right now. We've paid off a lot of our notes. So we're in a position to actually take on more debt, but that's a decision of other parties beyond myself.
Just one, I don't think I've ever made a public one of these things. I think Denise's point is expensive, and I think your comments are instructive. I've been on the Board of Finance for almost 2 years, and I think in general, and I'm not pointing fingers at anybody, but there's a general resistance to change. Too great a resistance to change, I think, because we are at the point, if we're gonna maintain a general fund. Kane's is, how much, you said $6 million?
Yeah.
Yeah, so ours is gonna be, about $800,000. And there's no reason to think that expenses aren't gonna keep growing. And I also think it's not realistic to think we're gonna find significant new sources of revenue. I hear people talking about that, but I don't think it's realistic. We're not gonna build a casino or enact a municipal income tax or something like that. So we are indeed in a crunch, and it will mean that we're gonna have serial significant increases in our mill rate year after year after year. And I think people just have to log that in and not resist it. It's going to happen. So that may require some change in thinking about how we spend.
Yeah.
So
Any
that's
other
it.
comments?
No, so good.
Um,
I will make, oh, I wanted to do that. Okay,
All in favor?
all right. I think Charlie wanted me to do that. He's ready to go to bed. Thank you very much.